In the winter of 1881, beneath the floorboards of the McKenna sisters' saloon in Leadville, Colorado, investigators made a chilling discovery that would haunt the mining camps for decades. 23 sets of women's clothing lay neatly folded, each bundle accompanied by a handwritten note detailing a name, age, physical description, and most disturbingly, a price. These personal effects told silent stories of interrupted lives: a blue calico dress still carrying the faint scent of lavender soap, worn leather boots meticulously repaired, a silver locket containing the photograph of an elderly woman who would never know her daughter's fate. Unsent letters addressed to families back east described hopes for new lives and promises to write again soon with news of success. The McKenna sisters themselves had vanished 3 days before the raid, leaving behind only these ghostly testimonies to crimes that authorities would spend years unraveling. Leadville in 1881 was a city intoxicated by silver and gold, where fortunes materialized and evaporated with the turn of a pickaxe. Perched at over 10,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains, the town had exploded from a few hundred residents to nearly 30,000 in just 3 years, making it Colorado's second-largest city and one of the most chaotic boomtowns in American history. The air vibrated with ambition and desperation, thick with smelter smoke and the dreams of men who believed the next shovel of dirt might change their lives forever. Harrison Avenue, the main thoroughfare, was lined with establishments catering to every human need, and Vice, the Tabor Opera House, where famous performers entertained the newly wealthy, gambling parlors where fortunes changed hands over days-long poker games, and dozens of saloons where miners spent their earnings as fast as they could dig them from the ground. Amid this chaotic convergence of humanity arrived Catherine and Margaret McKenna, 2 sisters in their late 20s from Boston, who had arrived in 1879 with their life savings sewn into their dresses and a determination to establish themselves in the growing town. Catherine, the elder at 31, was a striking woman with auburn hair that caught fire in lamplight and green eyes that held both warmth and calculation. Standing nearly 6 feet tall, unusual for a woman of that era, she carried herself with a confidence that commanded respect from Leadville's rough men. Her gift for conversation made every patron feel like the most interesting person in the room, and her remarkable memory for personal details created connections that went far beyond typical saloon keeper-customer relationships. Margaret, 28 and quieter than her sister, possessed an almost maternal quality that put people at ease. With soft brown hair worn in a simple bun and gentle brown eyes, she seemed to represent the civilizing influence that families hoped would eventually tame the wild frontier. Where Catherine was the public face of their operation, Margaret was the practical heart, managing finances, keeping meticulous records, and intuitively understanding people's vulnerabilities. The McKenna sisters' saloon occupied a prime corner lot on Harrison Avenue, in a 2-story wooden building that spoke of permanence in a town of temporary structures. The ground floor featured a mahogany bar imported from Denver, round tables crafted from local pine with Eastern quality finish, and a small stage for traveling musicians. The walls displayed paintings of Irish countryside scenes that Catherine claimed reminded them of their homeland, though no one had ever heard the sisters speak with Irish accents. The second floor, they explained to curious neighbors, contained their private quarters and rooms rented to respectable working girls needing temporary lodging, presented as a charitable service to help decent women avoid disreputable boarding houses. What truly set their establishment apart was their reputation for helping young women find employment. Church leaders praised them as examples of Christian charity, and the Leadville Herald-Democrat had run a favorable article about their civilizing influence on the community. The first indication that something was terribly wrong arrived not from Leadville but from a desperate letter that reached Marshal William Dugen's office on a frigid November morning in 1880. The water-stained envelope bore a San Francisco postmark and handwriting that trembled with fear. Inside, 8 pages told a story so disturbing the veteran lawman read it 3 times before believing it was real. The letter came from Emma Kowalski, who claimed she had escaped from a Barbary Coast brothel and was searching for her younger sister Anna. Their story began with tragedy. Their parents had died in a Chicago tenement fire that left them homeless and destitute. Hearing stories of opportunities in the West, they had used their last savings to travel to Colorado, where in Denver they learned about the McKenna sisters' reputation for helping young women find respectable employment. Arriving in Leadville, exhausted and frightened in September 1880, they had been welcomed with hot soup, clean beds, and encouraging words about their prospects. For several days, the sisters treated them with kindness, providing excellent meals and thoughtful advice. Catherine spoke of opportunities throughout the West, mentioning a network of business associates always seeking trustworthy girls for positions paying good wages with security. Then came the special dinner celebrating their decision to accept positions in California. Emma remembered feeling unusually drowsy during the meal, attributing it to exhaustion and altitude. When she awoke, she was in a wagon bouncing along a mountain road, her hands bound, her head pounding from what she realized had been laudanum in her food. A Spanish-accented man joked with Catherine about the merchandise he was transporting. When Emma demanded answers, he laughed and explained they had been purchased by California businessmen needing workers for their establishments. The casual discussion of their fate as commodities was nearly as horrifying as the captivity itself. The journey to California took weeks, with Emma and Anna moved from wagon to train to ship, always under guard and drugged when troublesome. Emma described realizing dozens of other girls were being transported along the same route, all having trusted the wrong people in their search for new lives. They came from everywhere: farm girls from drought-stricken Kansas, factory workers from eastern cities, immigrants learning America's promised land could be as cruel as the countries they fled. All shared desperation, isolation, and the misfortune of trusting people who saw their vulnerability as profit opportunity. Emma escaped during a police raid on the brothel, slipping away in the confusion. She spent weeks hiding in alleys, working odd jobs for pennies to earn passage back east, haunted by knowing Anna remained trapped. Her letter begged Marshal Dugen to investigate the McKenna sisters, find Anna, and prevent other girls suffering similar fates. The letter disturbed Dugen profoundly. He knew the sisters personally. Catherine always remembered how he liked his whiskey. Margaret had sent soup when his wife had pneumonia. Yet Emma's letter contained details about the saloon's interior and the sisters' mannerisms that couldn't have been invented. He began a quiet investigation, starting with missing persons records. The pattern chilled him. At least 15 families had reported daughters, sisters, or wives disappearing under similar circumstances. Young women traveling alone or in pairs, arriving with little money and few connections, last seen near establishments catering to transient workers, most frequently near the McKenna saloon, often having mentioned hoping to find work there. Margaret O'Brien, 18, from Ireland, seen entering the saloon one Tuesday afternoon, never emerged. Sarah Jenkins, 22, stranded after her husband died in a mining accident, excited about a San Francisco position, disappeared the night she was to meet about it. The pattern repeated: desperate women attracted by the sisters' reputation, vanishing after expressing optimism about opportunities that seemed too good to be true, often leaving behind personal items suggesting unexpected departures. Local business owners shared observations that now seemed ominous. Thomas Brennan from the nearby general store recalled seeing young women arrive with traveling bags but never saw them leave. When he asked, Catherine explained they found work quickly and left early for transportation. Sarah Fleming, who ran a respectable boarding house, remembered directing desperate young women to the sisters, thinking she was helping them avoid dangerous lodgings. "I thought those women were angels," she later told Dugen, her voice breaking. "I was sending those poor girls straight to hell." Dr. William Patterson recalled examining several women staying with the sisters, always for minor ailments requiring more discretion than medical expertise. The women were unusually quiet and subdued, which he had attributed to shyness but now wondered indicated drugging or threats. The investigation breakthrough came from Dr. Helena Morrison, one of Colorado's few female physicians who had been documenting suspicious activities. In October 1880, she treated Clara Hoffman, who stumbled into her office severely disoriented with symptoms consistent with laudanum intoxication. Clara insisted she had consumed nothing stronger than beer at the McKenna saloon. Her story followed a familiar pattern. Arriving from Kansas after her family lost their farm to drought, Catherine befriending her, offering a temporary room, then a special dinner where she felt unusually sleepy. She awoke 12 hours later violently ill, with vague memories of being moved and handled, and discovered all her belongings gone, including her mother's Bible, her most treasured possession. Margaret claimed Clara had been sleepwalking and packed her bags during a nervous breakdown. Dr. Morrison recognized the symptoms as classic laudanum dosing, urged Clara to report it, but Clara feared accusing the respected sisters without proof. 2 weeks later, another nearly identical case, Rebecca Tanner, 19, found wandering at dawn in her nightgown, confused about where she had been. Her last clear memory was dinner with the sisters, excited about a governor's position in Denver. Examination revealed similar laudanum symptoms, but Rebecca had awakened in a strange room with restraint, bruises and rope burns. She had escaped during transportation by throwing herself from a wagon and hiding in woods. By January 1881, Dugen had enough evidence for aggressive investigation but faced complications. The sisters were integral to Leadville's self-image as a civilized place. Catherine cultivated relationships with prominent businessmen like silver magnate Horace Tabo, who cited the sisters as examples of entrepreneurial spirit making the West prosper. Margaret's church charity work earned religious leaders' support. Their financial connections, purchasing from local merchants, hiring workers, providing loans, made them economically important. Dugen knew accusing them without overwhelming evidence would bring claims of persecution from influential supporters. He also suspected they would disappear if alerted, vanishing into the vast West with their secrets. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Anna Kowalski herself, who had escaped captivity and returned to Colorado seeking justice. Her journey demonstrated incredible determination. Enduring months in a Barbary Coast brothel where women were controlled through drugs, violence and psychological manipulation, kept in debt bondage that never ended, Anna escaped during a police raid, focused on arresting customers rather than rescuing victims. Slipping out a back window, she spent months hiding, working subsistence jobs, slowly saving transportation money. Her appearance in Leadville in February 1881 shocked those who remembered the sweet, naive girl from 18 months earlier. Trauma had transformed her into a hardened young woman, with eyes that had seen too much and a burning desire for revenge keeping her alive. Unlike her sister Emma, who fled east to forget, Anna returned to ensure the McKenna sisters paid, regardless of personal cost. Her testimony provided detailed operation knowledge Dugen lacked. She described transportation routes from Leadville to Denver to Salt Lake City to San Francisco, using established routes, avoiding law enforcement, with safe houses for hiding if pursued. The network included corrupt officials paid to look away, legitimate business fronts and communication systems tracking shipments across hundreds of miles. She knew names of other trafficked women, descriptions of transporters and guards, and methods for identifying recruits. Most importantly, she revealed the sisters kept detailed transaction records, each woman documented with background, physical characteristics and price in a locked cabinet in Margaret's room, alongside personal items taken as trophies. The business-like records were perhaps more chilling than the crimes themselves, turning human tragedies into accounting entries. Anna also described psychological breaking methods, telling victims their families had been informed they died, that law enforcement sought them as criminals, that acceptance was their only choice. Resistors received violence calculated to terrify without damaging merchandise, beatings leaving hidden bruises, threats to families back home, forced witnessing of others' punishments. The operation's sophistication was remarkable for its time: safe houses along routes, corrupted officials, business fronts moving victims without suspicion. The McKenna sisters were one link in a chain stretching from farming communities to urban centers, feeding voracious demand for young women in cities where men outnumbered women 10-1. Anna's return created danger. She wanted public confrontation, believing exposure more satisfying than legal proceedings potentially influenced by the sisters' connections. Dugen wanted to prevent her taking matters into her own hands, fearing she walked into a trap that could cost her life. Tension mounted as word spread something involved the McKenna sisters. Anna's presence couldn't remain secret, and people who knew her before asked questions about her changed appearance. The sisters seemed to sense growing peril. Catherine became more guarded, declining invitations, avoiding revealing conversations. Margaret showed severe stress, pacing at odd hours, hands shaking when serving drinks. They questioned their employees about customer conversations, insisting on knowing daily details. The final confrontation came on a bitter cold March night in 1881. Anna, despite Dugen's warnings, decided to act after watching another young victim arrive, a girl of 17 with the same hopeful, fearful look she remembered from her own first days. Seeing Catherine welcome the girl with familiar warmth, offering food, rest and sympathy, was more than she could bear. Entering the saloon that evening armed with a derringer and evidence collected during captivity, letters, photographs, documents, other victims' testimonies, she planned to force public confession. She hadn't anticipated the sisters were prepared for such confrontation, having noticed increased law enforcement attention and rumors of former victims asking questions. When Anna asked to speak privately, Catherine agreed but signaled Margaret to alert associates. Within minutes, 3 armed men Anna recognized as transporters positioned themselves around the saloon. Her accusations, delivered with cold fury, silenced normal chatter, naming dates, describing routes, providing network details only an insider could know. She spoke of women who had died from violence or disease in brothels, others who disappeared when too sick or troublesome. She demanded they acknowledge their crimes and surrender, but more, explain how they could smile, offering comfort while planning destruction. Catherine's response revealed cold calculation and arrogance from operating without consequences. Denying nothing, she expressed twisted admiration for Anna's survival, explaining trafficking was nothing personal, just business opportunity profitable in a frontier economy where demand exceeded supply. Young women were commodities, and they efficiently moved them to highest demand. She spoke about victims with casual indifference, reducing human lives to market transactions requiring no more moral consideration than other business dealings. The conversation interrupted by Dugen and deputies arriving after monitoring the saloon and seeing armed men enter. What followed was chaotic gunfight lasting minutes but feeling eternal in confined space. 2 associates killed in initial exchange, Anna seriously wounded in shoulder before her attacker was shot by Deputy Crawford. In confusion of smoke, gunfire and screaming customers, Margaret was killed by Deputy Riley, mistaking her reach for a cabinet key as reaching for a weapon. Catherine escaped through a rear exit into mapped alleys, vanishing despite immediate pursuit and days-long search into the vast wilderness, taking secrets that might have led to other arrests. The search for Catherine McKenna lasted weeks, with agencies throughout Colorado and neighboring states joining. Wanted posters offered substantial rewards from Denver to San Francisco. She clearly had prepared escape plans with hidden money and safe houses along routes. Some claimed sightings in Denver or Salt Lake City, but none confirmed, and she effectively disappeared from history. The saloon investigation yielded evidence exceeding Dugen's worst expectations. Beyond clothing and personal effects, detailed business records, correspondence with criminal associates throughout the West, maps showing transportation routes connecting dozens of communities across multiple states. Documents revealed they had trafficked at least 47 women over 2 years, generating profits exceeding $15,000, more than most legitimate Leadville businesses earned in several years. Records showed payments to corrupt officials, transportation and safe house expenses, even insurance payments for damaged or lost merchandise. Most disturbing was Margaret's collection of victim photographs found in her room with written descriptions, dozens of young women in unconsciousness or distress documenting capture and subduing success. These trophies served no business purpose, suggesting psychological cruelty beyond criminal profit. The case's aftermath sent shockwaves through Leadville and beyond, forcing communities to confront how well they knew neighbors and how easily evil disguised itself behind respectability. The investigation revealed the network extended far beyond initial understanding. Connections to similar operations in at least 6 other states and territories brought federal involvement, leading to Denver, Salt Lake City, and San Francisco arrests that dismantled much of the Western trafficking network. It exposed sophisticated criminal enterprises operating across state lines with legitimate business efficiency, challenging frontier lawlessness assumptions. Anna survived her wounds but forever changed by experiences and quest for justice. The confrontation brought closure but cost her physically and emotionally. She became an early advocate for anti-trafficking legislation, testifying before territorial and federal lawmakers for stronger penalties and better victim protection. Her testimony helped new laws increasing kidnapping penalties and improving interstate law enforcement cooperation. Courage speaking publicly despite sexual violence victim stigma helped other survivors find voices for previously ignored crimes. Dr. Morrison's medical documentation proved crucial, prosecuting other network members, providing evidence convicting transporters and guards. Her laudanum poisoning records created medical understanding of trafficking operations, and court testimony helped establish victim credibility. She continued Leadville practice, advocating women's safety and health care throughout frontier regions, establishing trafficking victim recognition and treatment protocols, working with law enforcement on better investigation procedures for violence against women cases. Marshal Dugen, promoted to U.S. Marshal, spent much remaining career tracking trafficking networks throughout the West. He never stopped looking for McKenna, following leads and investigating rumors over a decade. Some evidence suggested Mexico flight, other reports placed her in western cities under assumed names but never definitively located or brought to justice. The case had broader implications for protecting vulnerable women and identifying criminal enterprises preying on desperate people seeking better lives. Churches established formal female traveler assistance networks. Law enforcement developed better missing persons procedures for women traveling alone. It demonstrated how frontier lawlessness reputation created opportunities for sophisticated criminal enterprises preying on those seeking new opportunities, and how criminals exploited societal expectations about women's roles and behavior, using gender and charitable reputation as camouflage for heinous crimes. Most importantly, it revealed how easily evil hides behind respectability facades, and how the most trusted community members can harbor darkest secrets. The McKenna sisters operated for years not from cleverness but understanding how to exploit assumptions and expectations, turning frontier hospitality and community support virtues into weapons against the innocent.